You know, I think my channel content wouldn't be complete if I didn't do something on the rapture. It just happened again. In my lifetime, I'm 66 now. That rapture's come and gone a number of times. And it always gets people in the same frantic tizzy where they just get ready to die. And it doesn't happen in their... It's horrific to watch it happen. Christians that are waiting for Jesus to physically come back, I'm going to admonish you for not understanding the material. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I'm not a Christian. I'm not an atheist. I'm somebody that follows and understands or tries to understand the teachings of Jesus, not the teachings of the church. The church is formed from what? The teachings of Jesus. Do you want to know what Jesus teaches? Why not just go to Jesus? Why go to the church? Why go to somebody telling you that Jesus is going to physically return at some point in time when Jesus himself, after the resurrection, now this is metaphorical, after the resurrection told his disciples, before all of you have died, I will return. This is 2,000 years ago. Before all of you have died, I will return. How does that work? Jesus already came back. But you know what's happening is that you're waiting for a one-time physical, Jesus is coming back and taking me away. That is not what the rapture is. That's not what the return of Christ is. The return of Christ happens every time somebody follows his teachings. Go look through the Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain. Find anywhere, I challenge you to find where Jesus says, just worship me and I got this. I'm going to come back and get you if you worship me. Jesus never said that. The church said that. And if you're going to church and hearing that, that's the blind leading the blind, and they're all going to fall into the pit. And every time the rapture doesn't come and people are boo-hooing and crying and wondering what's going on, yeah, you fell into the pit. There's the blind leading the blind again and again, right there. It's actually here in the book of Matthew. It's verse 28 of chapter 16, where he's talking to the disciples, and he says, verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So right here, we're being told by something that Jesus is saying, that some of you will not even die before they see me coming back to my kingdom. So what does that mean then? We have to look at that metaphorically. Obviously, it's not a physical return. But obviously, it's something that happened back then. So you can't, why would you be thousands of years later still waiting for that when you read that and go, okay, what does that mean right there? That does not say sometime in the future. It says you'll never know when it comes. That's a part of it. It's a body of work. So the deal is this. Jesus has a teaching. And if you interpret his teachings and follow his teachings, like the Sermon on the Mount, follow that. Interpret it, follow it, do it. But you must interpret it and interact with the teaching right there. When that happens, you're following his path. That is the return of Christ right there. Every time somebody follows the path he's set forth, that's the return of Christ. You have to make it parallel to the Buddha teaching. The Buddha is radically different, but it's doing the same thing, but it doesn't sound the same way, and it's not managed mentally in the same way. The Buddha says everybody has a Buddha nature, an enlightened self, a pure self. That's your Buddha nature. And that when we live life, we become attached to things. And when we find a way to rid those attachments, and we're not connected to those things, and we're not feeling and experiencing those things, we're living in a mental state of nirvana. And what has happened is that your Buddha nature has emerged. If we parallel that to Jesus, only what happened? Instead of doing what he's teaching, we're doing what the church is saying and worshiping him instead of following his teachings. So what we've done here is just turn Jesus into a Christian invisible idol to worship instead of a teacher to follow. When Jesus is saying that, he's saying that this is a pathway for you to follow. And every time you follow this pathway, or anytime somebody follows this pathway, you never know when it's going to come. When it's going to, you have no idea. When people find it, they find it, and they go. But it's always going to be happening. You're going to find your nature, your Christ nature, which doesn't sound good to people who don't want that to be the case. They want there to be this. They still want it to be that way. But look at what happens when you want that. There's no explanation for that to happen. Yeah, I know that we can get into Revelation and all that. I've done a video on that before, how Revelation has many parallels with the Babylonian and Numa Elish, the creation myth there. So we can, there's a point in time where looking for information here. This return, the physical return of Jesus Christ to come back, all that happening and horses and all that, oh my gosh. People, get out of your homes. Stop listening to people in the church. That's the blind leading the blind. Read the material. Make it your own. Enter the narrow gate. Become mentally, where you're mentally interactive with it. We're full of things that we need, that are issues that we need to resolve. We need to become poor in spirit. We need to interact with that material. Okay, I just want to say that about the rapture. There's reasons for people to think that it's there, but there's also reasons to explain that it happens, but that's metaphorical. What you're really looking for is the return of a Christ nature every time somebody follows his path, and you never know when that's going to happen. See you in the next video.